Hi there, it's Dr. Matthew Buckley, and this is the fifth in a series of interviews that I'm doing with practitioners that I'm bringing on into the Anarchapulco Revive Clinic, sponsored by Divine Biome. And today I have Heather Eland. Heather is a astrologer, and she's got a number of focuses within astrology. And right now she's doing medical astrology, but she is a wealth of knowledge with anything related to astrology. And I know this is not something that everybody's going to be interested in, but there's, I've seen enough evidence in my life to know that there's actually something to astrology. And I view it as a tool that's worthy of consideration for anybody looking for a deeper insight into the interconnected energetic dynamics of the world that we exist in. So I want to invite you all to get to know Heather. Heather, you want to step on in and tell everybody how you got connected in with astrology and what it is to you and how you use it as a tool?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. And thank you for inviting me to be here and to be a part of your Divine Biome clinic. I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, I'm happy.
Yeah. And so I guess I'll start with how I got into astrology. So I got into astrology about 9 years ago. I was in graduate school. And I was actually having a lot of health problems, which you know about. And so I was having a lot of issues beyond just that, though. I was in a program that I thought was everything I wanted. I had just gotten a job that I thought was everything I ever wanted. And, my health was taking a bad turn. My finances were a mess. My relationships were not going well. My living situation was just a giant disaster. And I was like completely just not knowing what was going on. And I felt very lost. And so I had this friend who kept, she was into like crystals and all this like woo-woo new agey stuff that I, at that time, was very not in that realm. I was very, scientific minded. I was, working in research. I wanted to get my PhD in behavioral neuroscience. That wasn't even a consideration for me. So when she'd talk about these things, I would just kind of roll my eyes like, okay, she's talking about woo-woo again, and like not really pay much attention. But after all of that started to happen, I went and paid her a visit, and without even telling her anything that was going on with me, she started telling me about certain transits that were happening and how they would be affecting me. And it was like too accurate. And I was like, okay, I need to know more about this. How did you do that, right? So she recommended a book. I jumped in and I was immediately hooked. I became obsessed. I was learning more about myself and about like the human psyche from this like astrology book than any of my grad school courses that I thought were so great. And I just kept going and kept going and kept going. And now it's like 9 years later and I'm doing this professionally, and I've studied all sorts of different types of astrology. I study traditional Hellenistic astrology. I study Western modern astrology, and I study medical astrology. And that is primarily because I've dealt with my own issues with chronic illness since around that time. And, astrology has helped me to connect that experience to other things that were going on in my life, and also to see sort of these markers for what was happening and why. And so I guess that's kind of how I got started. And what I view astrology as is exactly what you said. It shows the interconnectedness between everything. It shows how, your experiences are all connected. It shows how the psychological components are connected to the emotional components, are connected to situations in your life, are connected to physical illnesses. Like all of these things are connected, and it becomes very apparent when you look at it through this lens of astrology, which is just essentially a language that shows us all of these connections and gives us a lot of insight into our lives and sort of what we came here to experience and why we're experiencing it.
Okay, so the way that I kind of view astrology is that it's a way. It's kind of like a meteorologist reading the weather, right? But it's kind of like meteorology for the state of consciousness across the planet, and particularly as it may relate to you at your given point in existence. Is that kind of a fair description of how you would describe it as well in that elevator pitch?
And that's absolutely true. And that is definitely something you can use it for. And so there are different types of astrology. And so what you're talking about is like predictive astrology, looking at transits and other influences and how they're impacting you now and how they're impacting the global sphere, and, you know, the collective consciousness and the collective experience as well. And that's definitely part of it. And it's all interrelated. There's that, and then there's what you're born with, right? And what that tells you about your life experience and how that's being activated by those transits and by that weather report. So yeah, absolutely. It can absolutely be used that way, and it should, because it's helpful to understand what's going on with you in the moment, so you can navigate it better.
Okay, cool. So you're going to be coming into the clinic, and what exactly would it look like if somebody's going to have a session with you?
Well, it would look like, first off, if anybody out there is watching this and you want to have a session with me live at the clinic, definitely bring your like date, time, and location of birth, exact time. I need like your birth certificate time of birth because that's going to ensure the accuracy of what it is that I'm doing. And so what I'm going to do with that information is I'm going to put it into a computer program, and it's going to generate a chart, which is essentially a map of where all of the planets and different calculations and different points that we look at in astrology, where those were in respect to you at the exact moment, time, and placement of your birth. And that map is going to tell me a lot of information about your life. And so what I'm going to be doing is focusing on how this map of the planets and all of the different energies, how this plays out in terms of your personality traits, especially psychological, patterns and behavioral patterns and things like that, and emotional issues, and how that relates to what you're experiencing physically, be that, through physical illness or potential for physical illness and maybe areas of weakness that you want to work on strengthening, or, just physical experiences in your life. It really depends. I will be giving, general readings, but I'm also going to be giving readings focused on health and wellness, and especially the psychological aspects of that, because that's my background in psychology, and that's, my primary focus in astrology as well.
So if people want to find a little bit more information about you right now, where should they go?
They should go to astrologywithheather.com, or they can find me on YouTube. My YouTube channel is also called Astrology with Heather, and I have plenty of free videos and resources. Especially if you're new to astrology, that would be the best place to start, because you can start learning what this even is in the first place.